You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
All right, we are here the day after Jaylen Brown has been traded, shockingly, to the Philadelphia 76ers for, of all people, Paul George. 2 first-round picks, one next season, 2028, and the other 2031, and some second-round picks, 2 other second-round picks. Celtics also made a couple other signings, Mitchell Robinson and Michael Conley. We're going to get into all that and more. Just crazy day yesterday, and not a lot of praise going the Celtics' ways. We are Hard Foul, Mike, and we are part of the what?
Fans First Sport Network.
And I am Jim Quigley, as always, here with my brother Michael. Michael, much to talk about. I don't know. Not much of it good, I don't think, here. So why don't you give us your opening thoughts wherever you want to take them this morning.
This is just one of the worst trades of my lifetime. It's right up there with the Luka trade. Makes absolutely no sense, and we need to hear from ownership, but I'm not sure what we're actually going to hear. It feels like I can't wrap my head around it. I've heard that it's a salary dump, but, Paul George could opt out next year, or he could be here for 2 full years, and Jaylen Brown could opt out in 2 years. So if it was a salary dump, why not just wait with Jaylen Brown and compete? And on the other part of it, it's like you were willing to trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis, but you weren't willing to include 2 role players, but you're willing to trade Jaylen Brown for Paul George. It doesn't make any sense. Like they've handled this horrible. I was someone who was open to trading Jaylen Brown, but at this point, like, why didn't they wait? Why didn't they just hold on to him? And when we think about Tatum's window, this doesn't help Tatum's window. This makes it worse. They're not competing next year for anything serious. They're not they could be a decent regular season team, but they're not beating anybody in the postseason with Paul George. And then the other part of Paul George is like he hardly plays. How many games are they going to get out of him? 40? Maybe? Is he going to dress up for 40 games next year? Like, he played 36 last year. The season prior to that, he played 40. He's played more than 60 games once in the last 7 seasons. He doesn't play. And you traded him to a rival, a hated rival by the fans. I can't wrap my head around this. Is fucking terrible. And like the stuff that's really pissing me off are like the analytics folks. I read the article by Tom. I can't pronounce his last name, Hasselback
Yeah.
I read that article twice and like, oh yeah, these fucking nerds. Like, can Peyton Pritchard be Jalen Brunson? No, he can't. That's like no, he can't. He can't be Jalen Brunson. And the plus minus with Jaylen Brown, they were 47-10 without him. And like, he was an MVP candidate and he's second all team. Like, are we really arguing that the Celtics are better off after this trade? Are they really trying to say that, some of these nerds? And then like Windhorst going on and there's people in the Celtics brass who will tell you that Derek White had a better season than Jaylen Brown. If that's true, they all need to be fucking fired. They all need to be fired because he didn't have a better season than Jaylen Brown. He didn't even have close. Like he didn't shoot the ball well, number one, and he wasn't an all-star. He didn't make it to any all-team things. Like, what are we talking about?
Oh, well, technically he did, but he wasn't better than Jaylen Brown.
No.
He was first team all NBA defense. But yeah, no, he wasn't as good as Jaylen Brown. It was, yeah, Mike, I don't know. I go back to last offseason on this pod, and I said, if you want to look ahead and like rebuild this thing now. With Tatum being out, this is the time to do it, and probably the time to shop Jaylen Brown, maybe the time to shop Derek White. The draft was loaded going into this year. You could have grabbed some additional assets to maybe go after a guy like Giannis if you really wanted it. It was the time to reset. If the whole financial thing was important to you, and you thought, these two contracts can't coexist. Your two supermax, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, can't coexist. Then the time to really start making that move was last offseason. And you had your bridge season, you had your excuse, and you should have done it then. And I advocated for it then. And they didn't, and I kind of felt like, I don't know, it felt like his stock was still pretty good. Maybe you could have said it was better coming off of the sixth in the MVP voting, but he was a year younger. There was another year on his contract. I, 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 I thought that was the time, and it's curious that they didn't, and now they did. So what happened? Because they wanted him last year. They didn't put him in any trade talks last offseason. They really didn't. There was nothing you heard, maybe, some rumors, but it didn't seem like anything serious. So what happened between now and then? Because they wanted this guy gone. And I felt that way when the Giannis trade didn't happen, based on all the reports that were coming out, that they wanted him gone. And there's going to be some story here that we're missing. It's not the analytic thing, because all of a sudden for 9 seasons that didn't bother them, and
I know.
now it does. That doesn't make any sense. Apparently he did not ask to be traded. Was it the way he says he needs to be used going forward? Was that part of the conversation with Brad? I do not know. But I was afraid they're going to trade him for the sake of trading him.
And they did.
And that's what they did. I know you advocated for trading him, but this isn't what you wanted, obviously. But this is a terrible return, and this is why I thought not going all in for Giannis was so dangerous, because you did not know what was going to be out there afterwards. You did not know what teams are going to be looking to build for their teams. It's a huge contract to take on, and if Jaylen Brown isn't going to resign with them, then they probably, you still have him for 3 years, but maybe it's a little bit of a risk. But it's a huge contract, and it really starts to move you towards that tax line a lot quicker if you're a team like Portland or somewhere else. So why would you give up a shitload of assets? And
Yeah.
this is where it was just so confusing on the Giannis move, that they just didn't go all in. They didn't. And Mike, I think with most trades you can resurrect things. You can kind of fix um like whatever bad feelings, right? He was in a trade with Giannis. You could probably walk this back, and you looked at like with the move, at least the Mitchell Robinson move. That's a good move with Tatum and Brown there. Like you can see how you can build this out a little bit. Um, but a few hours later, they just trade him away. I don't know the whole story, but this is less than you would want. Obviously, it's a terrible trade. And the Celtics are worse off today than they were yesterday. The 76ers are better off today than they were yesterday. And it's you said it's one of the worst trades you can remember. I don't remember the Celtics ever making a trade like this in my lifetime. Anything close to this bad, at least since Danny Ainge has come on board and Brad Stevens has been here. The idea that the ownership wasn't involved is,
Come on.
it's not true. They're involved in players of this magnitude all the time. You don't do it without ownership being involved. But the whole thing with money, where the money comes in is you're not re-signing Paul George to a supermax, and maybe it was you weren't going to re-sign Brown, and you thought that was going to cause a problem in the locker room. I don't know, but this is this is really bad. And the Celtics now, I thought they needed to get more athletic. I thought they needed to get faster. I think they needed to have, more explosive plays at the rim, as Brad talked about. I mean, that's what he said in this press conference. Well, they signed Mike Conley, they brought in Paul George, the two spot up shooters at this point in their career. Jaylen Brown got to the rim a shitload. Uh, you know, so that's gone. Um, they haven't
They
gotten
don't
better
have
there.
like outside
So
of
I don't
Tatum,
know.
they don't have guys that can create for themselves. I mean, they'll have Paul George for like the 12 games that he plays.
Yeah, no, I don't know how much he creates for himself anymore either. I think Pritchard creates for himself in the regular season just fine. He doesn't really, he does that just fine. But no, and that was a problem for them last year, right? That was a problem for them last year, especially when you got to the playoffs. And then
Yep.
Brown was really bad there. Yeah, I don't know, Mike. It's so shocking. There's no way I can defend this trade. There's no way I can defend this trade. I would have rather, even if there was some hurt feelings, waiting till like another like superstar player became available and try to like package that in for that player. I mean, but
Feels like
it's
there was
also
no real plan. It was like Giannis or nothing. And if it was Giannis or nothing, you have to go get Giannis.
and
And you didn't do what it took to get him.
there was no market for him. The other thing, which is kind of really shocking, right? There was
Yeah.
nobody really wanted him because this is an easy offer to beat. This is a
Because
really easy
the
offer.
owners don't want to spend. That's a big part of this.
Hmm.
That's a big part of you brought it up on the last pod. Like they're they're colluding with each other across the league. I mean, Mitchell Robinson leaving the Knicks is only because
There's
James
proof
Dolan
of it.
doesn't want to
Yeah,
spend. You
yeah.
know, um, Jaylen Brown not being a Celtics, I do think is a big part of that. They don't want to
I think
extend him. They
so.
don't want to pay him. You know, um,
And I can get some of the argument for not extending Brown. He'd be like 34, 35 at that type of money. That's might not be good business, especially when you start to look at wings at that age.
yeah.
But that's a separate argument from this move.
And how does like a 2031 draft pick help Jayson Tatum?
It helps if you can package it, I guess. If you can
Yeah.
package it. So the
But
pick
that would
next
require
year,
spending money.
yeah, I mean, you're already spending, I mean, yeah, but I mean, you would, you would move Paul George's contract to something like that. So it's money in, money out. It's like the same money. So the next year's pick, I don't want to give them any credit, but the next year's pick is actually pretty valuable when you look at it's basically there's some complications to it, but it's going to be the Celtics pick, and it's ultimately going to be the better of the Clippers or the Sixers pick. And
Oh, the
if you look at
28.
yeah, if you look at the
That's 2 years
Clippers,
from now. Yeah.
um, if you look at where the Clippers are,
I
you
mean, but
know,
that can all change, though, you know, so quickly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course,
Yeah, I just
yeah.
what a disaster! What a disaster! They deserved all the fucking criticism. What a disaster! I mean, this was no foresight. This was no plan. This was a simple dump of a star player to get nothing back.
Yeah, this is Mookie Betts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
It is. It is Mookie Betts. It's
And you really risk, what's next with Jayson Tatum. I know some people have declared that this window is closed. I think Jayson Tatum is that great that this window isn't closed if you can make some spot moves going forward, but you have to hit them. And if you don't hit them, there's no guarantee that you're going to hit them. If you don't hit them, like what's next with him?
yeah.
It becomes a real question. He'll have to look at this landscape when it's time for him to extend next season. Like do I extend here or do I wait and see what this team is able to do?
And do they want to pay him?
I think they'll want to pay him, but yeah, and I don't know. I hope this doesn't become a Red Sox situation with a player going out of town because this guy was great here for 10 years. I know there was some talk about recent playoff failures, but
He was great there.
if you look at his playoff performances on the whole, he was really good. And every player has playoffs that aren't that good. Like just about every single player. So like this last offseason was a disaster. His on-off numbers in the playoffs were a disaster. Like you can't there's no way to defend it. It was terrible. He couldn't beat a guy off the dribble. But if he I'd even go back to the last playoffs, Mike, where he had the knee injury, but it was clear like every third game he had a dominant game. And
Hmm.
so he was getting a shot, and then the stuff wears off after the 24 hours. When he was good, when he was healthy, he was dominating. And then that championship run from
Oh,
the
the
first
championship.
game, it was as good a run as you're ever going to see by an individual player. As good a run as you're ever going to see. And he was fantastic. He was nails. He was tough, all those things. And I know there were moments that weren't great. Miami game seven, that when Tatum got hurt and he couldn't pick it up and finish the job. Like, I get it. But there were other moments, even going back to early in his career, in his second season, when Kyrie got hurt. He was fantastic for just about that entire run.
He was.
He was really good in the bubble outside of the Eastern Conference Finals. And so this was a big time player. It was a big time player that was all NBA for you and helped you win a championship, won a ton of games
He was all NBA. What, twice?
twice. Yep.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
NBA twice. And performed well in really, really big moments and relished them.
And it sounds like he didn't ask to be traded.
It's only, and it was great here in the city. Now, he
I
didn't
mean,
ask to,
he was doing a lot of work outside of basketball in Boston. I have a hard time believing. I think that was a big part of his reason why he didn't want to be traded. To walk away from that, he talked about Black Wall Street, and he's trying to do a lot of good here. Um, I really need to see the story of what happened. I understand wanting to trade him to get better, but I don't understand this result. Nothing can make me understand this result.
like,
Nothing can convince me this was good.
it had to have been, this is the only thing I can wrap my head around. It had to have been so toxic, like between the Celtics and Brown. Maybe he didn't ask for a trade, but maybe there were other things said.
Yeah, or him and
Because
Tatum.
things changed so quickly.
Hmm.
I just
I
Brown
mean,
said those.
we didn't hear a thing from Jayson Tatum throughout all this, and still haven't.
No, no. Unless he said something this morning.
No, the
I
last thing
mean,
he posted was his son like shooting jump shots.
so they're like Brown demand that they change the way they play, or like he needed to be the lead dog. I don't know. I hate even speculating, but from the moment he went on that Twitch stream, then Brad had his press conference. You know, basically said, our door is always open. I didn't hear that from him, but never said I'm building around the Jays at that press conference, which he
Which
has
he always said.
always said. There was clearly exit interviews. Brad said as much. He said the conversations were honest. He didn't say the conversations were good. Yeah, it had like there's that's the only thing that I could possibly think um, of what happened here.
It's great that
And maybe
that
we'll never
Brown.
hear the full story. I don't know, but I get this feeling that I just don't know. Unless the Celtics want to give it, I don't think Brown's going to give it. Maybe we don't hear it.
Oh, I don't know. Brown might give it now.
Maybe.
You know, once he starts feeling good and he's playing well in Philly, they go on a little run. They beat the Celtics, so He'll say something. I think Brown's like the opposite. He can't help himself anymore. An interesting dynamic for Brown is he's got to get old.
Unless it doesn't make him look good.
Yeah.
Unless what he was
Um,
requesting isn't going to make him look good. If he's requesting that, he be the top guy and the things need to change, then that's probably not something he wants out there.
and I don't even know if he's the top guy in Philly.
No, it's interesting, right? With Maxi and stuff like that.
Like Maxi.
There's one ball and three guys that are going to want it. They're going to have to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
You still have the Embiid issue. Like I think they got better. A lot of people saying championship. I don't think that's a championship team as long as Embiid is there. But yeah, they certainly got better.
Yeah, they certainly got better.
They're better than the Celtics today.
They are. A lot of teams are now. A lot of teams are now. Um, and I'm sure the Celtics will surprise us in the regular season, but I'm not taking the bait like last year. They are not built to win in the playoffs, and they might win 50 something games again. That wouldn't surprise me, but they're not built for the playoffs. It's a bunch of role players. It's one superstar and a bunch of role players.
Yeah, they don't have an all-star level player. I mean, there's still time this offseason. I mean, maybe they go after Trey Murphy. Then I'd have to
Yeah.
reevaluate what this team looks like for sure, because that would be a huge upgrade on this team. But as this roster
I mean,
stands
maybe
now,
Anthony Davis demands a trade, and you
well,
can
you
get him
don't.
for Paul George in like a second.
I would
I
think
mean, that would
you
be
would
an
need
upgrade.
you would need to give more than that. Paul George has no value. It might be the worst contract in the NBA. He has no value, and I think he's like 6 years older than Anthony Davis, or at least 5 years or 4 or 5 years older. He has no value.
I'm
Uh,
saying David's is going kicking and screaming, like refusing to play, which
yeah.
isn't out of the realm of possibility that he quits and just
Well,
doesn't play.
that's what you wait for, I guess. But as this roster is currently constituted, all right. My, Here's a nuanced take for you. I think the Celtics team going into this season is a better team than the Celtics had going into last season. And I actually think they're already better built for the playoffs with the addition of Mitchell Robinson than they were last year, even with Tatum and Brown together. I, I thought that issue was a huge problem. I think Robinson fits really, really well with Tatum. If Tatum comes back healthy, their playoff upside is a little bit higher than maybe what it was last offseason or even going into the postseason last year. I don't I don't think this is a championship team at all. So I don't want that to be confusing. I'm not sure this is a deep playoff team, but right now I could see them being a second round team in the Eastern Conference
Yeah,
with
I
this
don't know if I
roster.
can.
I And it all depends on what type of Jayson Tatum comes back. Um, and clearly, the Celtics want to build the offense around him and have him be the facilitator. Seeing him running the high screen with Cater and Mitchell Robinson, putting shooters around him so he can spray the ball around or get to the cup. Like I think that's what they're envisioning here, and not having to worry about whose turn is it offensively. Who's going to be the man? This thing is just going to run through Jayson Tatum. The problem is when Tatum comes off the floor, I don't know if you have a guy that can carry the second unit at all,
They
especially in a
don't.
playoff series. In a regular season, you can probably get by with Derek White and Peyton Pritchard being the combo, but they don't have that guy at all. There's still just a tremendous amount of redundancy on this team, on this roster. You still have Jordan Walsh, you still have Hugo Gonzalez. To me, as much as I like Jordan Walsh, like you got to just play Hugo, and so that means no minutes for Jordan Walsh. If there's no minutes for Jordan Walsh, then it's kind of like, why are we here? You have Shireman, you have Ron Hopper Jr. Like, and I just kind of feel it's redundant. they obviously value Ron Harper Jr., giving him that contract. I like Ron Harper Jr. a lot. And so I do feel like maybe there's other moves to be made. I do feel like you could potentially become a better team next year with some other moves around. Maybe you ship out Derek White and some picks, and you bring in a guy like Trey Murphy, maybe, or you know, when the free agency dies down, someone's unhappy, and you can go after them. But you could have done that stuff with Jaylen Brown and been even better. So even though I think this roster might be a little bit better built for the postseason now, they would have been a step or two above that with Jaylen Brown. And that was my whole point. My whole point when the season ended, we went into this pod about whether you trade Brown or whether you keep him. Like it wasn't, they had assets to make moves, and it wasn't going to be the hugest lift in the world to figure out how to do this. Guys become available. Trey Murphy's here, potentially for Derek White in some picks or whatever it might be, and you could make those moves and make your team better. But now you're going to make those moves, potentially make your team better, but you're not going to be as good. That's where it just gets so weird and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Jim, I think that you're right, but I think the issue is that the East got better. Toronto picked up Kawhi Leonard, and I certainly think that they've improved by moving on from Brandon Ingram and and that's a whole other story. I don't know if you listened to Pablo Toro recently, but
yeah, and the Clippers got more for Kawhi Leonard than the Celtics got for Jaylen Brown.
The Utah Jazz got more for Walker Kessler than the Celtics got for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, but that wasn't a supermax. So I like Kawhi's a
Still,
supermax and older and doesn't play, and they got more.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's where it makes no sense. None of this makes sense to me. Like, why wasn't there a market for him? Like, it's crazy. It's just insane.
Yeah. I just look at first round matchups. Like, they're not beating Cleveland. They're not beating Detroit. They're not beating Philly. They're not beating the Knicks. I can't believe they gave Philly, who just beat you, Jaylen Brown. Like, what the? I'm pissed about it. I just don't understand it. I don't. There's nothing that can make me understand this in a way that makes sense. This is an awful fucking trade, and they're old. Now they're old.
Yeah.
Now they have an old Paul George, and they signed Mike Conley, and they have Derek White. So now they're old. They're not even young.
The Mike Conley move, I don't understand
at all.
Whatsoever.
Why is he taking up a roster spot when you could just give that to like another Ron Harper Jr. and develop somebody? Or your next
finding an athletic point guard. I don't know. I do wonder if there's a move to be made of Sam Hauser and a sign and trade with Anthony Simons, potentially to the Bulls. Like, if you look at what what's his name, Colin Sexton got, it's about Hauser's salary, so that's probably the market, right, for Anthony Simons. I would think. I think they're about the same player, or value wise. So maybe there's a way to do that, and they certainly need him. Mike, and then that opens up the opportunity to maybe move Hugo into the starting lineup and really start developing and playing him. Obviously, they believe in him tremendously. I love Hugo. I don't know what he's going to become. Like, and
become something.
And it's a lot of this is like kind of unfair to him, right? Like, they're building him up like he's going to be a superstar. He was a 26th pick. My thought is this guy could become an NBA starter. Like I've never thought about him being a superstar, but they didn't include him, so that's the outlook on him is really going to be drastically changed. Probably unfairly, and but I think that's will be more of an indictment on the Celtics than it will be on him.
Of course,
yeah, like I just
on Brad Stevens. There'll be an indictment on Brad Stevens.
For sure. I mean, look, if he turns out to be an all NBA defensive guy and borderline have like a Derek White career, then they made the right move to have this guy cost controlled and being this young at 19, and then they made the right move. But if he's not that, if he's just a starter, if his ceiling is just a starter, then this was a huge blunder, a huge
Yeah.
blunder, and so the evaluation better be correct here. And I want to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt there because they have been good in that regard of projecting what their players are going to be and developing. But, they better be right. They better be right.
Brad Stevens' last two trades was for Vucevic, and now this. It's not looking great. It's not looking great.
No, no.
It's really not. Um, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, we can talk about, like, is there another move to be made? They have a TPE. It's $27 million. I'm sure that would help, but that would require them to spend money unless they move a contract out with it.
It's confusing
It's
what they
like,
can they're hard capped. So, like, what they can actually do with that now legally is really complicated. Because once they signed Mitchell Robinson to the full mid level, it makes him hard capped. So
so now they have their excuse not to use it.
So the league rules
You
make
know,
that really hard. I think it can be used, but they don't have TPEs are hard to use. Like they're way overvalued by fans. They have other things they can use on the team to get better. They don't need a TPE. Like teams, if you're trading with the Celtics, you don't want a TPE. You'd want Derek White and a couple draft picks. Like that's what you're gonna want, or you want Sam Hauser in a second round in a signing trade for Anthony Simons. But again, like I just feel like
it's almost
what do
like
you
paying Peter to pay Paul.
wouldn't you be
Because
better
now
off
it's
with
like you're chasing your tail because you blundered Jaylen Brown.
Well, let's say they get Trey Murphy for Derek White. And it's kind of a downgrade defensively, but maybe like I can see it. He's not as fast going off the dribble anymore. His shooting
Oh, I
had
would make that
issues.
trade. You got to get the younger player. Yeah.
But again, aren't you better with Trey Murphy, Jaylen Brown, and Jayson Tatum than Trey
Yes.
Murphy,
Of
Jayson
course you
Tatum,
are.
and Paul George?
Yes. So
Do
there's
you
something
do
wrong
you
here.
do you buy anything because you did not like how the Celtics have played in the ISO ball in particular? Is there anything to the argument that this team will just get better now that this is solely Jayson Tatum's team?
No, because they have the same coach. And I think he's a lot of the reason they play the way they play in the postseason. And he gets out coached. So I have a lot of issues with a lot of things right now, but the other side of it to what you're saying, there's definitely that possibility because now it's like freeing up Jayson Tatum to be the man. And I don't know if we've ever really been able to do that outside of that one season when Brown was hurt and he was playing that Hall of Fame team in Brooklyn. That probably would have went to the finals if everybody didn't get hurt. And he really showed in that series. I mean, the Celtics were in most of those games. So yeah, I think there's something to it, Jim, but I also think there's a philosophy at the top here with analytics. Um, I think it's very real within the Celtics organization, and I think it's a problem in sports. And I do think a big part of the way they play comes from the coach. And, he was somebody I also wanted to see not come back next year. I think it's a problem that he's still here. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's a good regular season coach. He can motivate guys and communicate with them, but he was very coached these last two series against the Knicks and Thibodeau and Nick Nurse in Philadelphia.
Well, he's been slow to make adjustments. That's
That's
for
what I
sure in the
mean.
playoffs. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
troubling. Which is troubling.
I mean,
You
that
know,
starting lineup in game 7 to me is a
yeah,
fireable offense.
yeah,
Yeah. That was crazy.
it was insane.
Yeah.
But to the point on
Gobler,
Tatum,
Luka Gobler, and Ron Hopper Jr. Do it.
to the to the point on Tatum, maybe they get better when it matters.
That's a good point.
Maybe everyone
It's a
gets
good
better
point.
when it matters. Like I just I thought this team was short on talent. Like let's say they win game seven. Let's say, Tatum stayed healthy and they win game seven. They are getting imbalanced in embarrassing fashion to the Knicks last year. And I don't think that has anything to do this past postseason. I don't think that has
That was
anything to do.
everybody in the NBA.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with Joe Mazzulla. I don't think they would get past the Pistons or the Caps. Just like, and maybe they put up a fight, but I just don't think they had the talent to do it. In the way the team was construct, especially at that center position. What they did with that center position was mismanagement. Especially when you have a guy like Tatum that really seems to make centers look even better than they are at
yeah.
times. I
I know how poor Luke Cornett looked
Yeah,
in
it's
San
so
Antonio.
I now the talent's not better. Like that's a they are a more talented team. And can I've heard a lot of talk about how Paul George outplayed Jaylen Brown in the series against the Celtics, and he did. But I also want people to take a look at his numbers from Game 7 to when they were eliminated against the Knicks.
They weren't good.
They were terrible. He was
Yeah,
nowhere to be found in the fourth quarter of Game 7 when his team needed him. When the Sixers almost choked that thing away, he was nowhere to be found. And
that's the
then
story of his career.
completely absent in those until Game 4 of that Knicks Sixers series. Completely absent.
Paul George
So
has been a loser for a long time.
Well, he
He
used
hasn't
to have,
won anywhere.
well, in his early on with the in his career with the Pacers, he was very, very good in the playoffs. He was excellent in the playoffs. And then it just
He
hasn't
played
been that
Tatum.
since. Yeah. Yeah, he was excellent. They couldn't get past LeBron, but still doesn't mean he wasn't excellent. He was excellent early in his career. To be fair to him, he has not been that since at all.
So,
Since probably the injury, since that gruesome foot break that he had.
yeah.
I and again, I like this isn't. I'm not. This isn't me hating on Paul George. Whatever.
I have no problem. I've always hated on him.
Yeah. But it's not his fault that he was the shit in the trade here.
It's not. Lower your expectations on this guy.
The best case scenario is that he has a halfway decent year, a halfway
He
decent
opts out.
playoff. Either opts out or he becomes a tradable asset at the end. As someone sees it an expiring contract, and but he would probably opt out, and then you can maybe move him aside and trade, and that contract gets a little bit easier and things like that. That's the best case scenario. I it's really, Mike. It's hard to grasp because that is one of the worst contracts. This isn't. I've seen like people mention on Twitter. Now it's time to trade George for what? You're gonna have to send picks out
Yeah.
to get off that
Yeah.
contract. Like for
It's going to
what?
become trading Jaylen Brown and draft picks to replace Jaylen Brown with a lesser player.
Yeah, you couldn't trade Jaylen Brown at that number. What do you think you're getting for Paul fucking George? You're not like this. You're stuck with him this year. You're not moving him unless something weird, really weird happens.
Yeah. I think it has to be Anthony Davis, like just full out going Andrew Bynum on the Washington Wizards. I think that's the only way. And then you hope that he comes here and he plays more than 12 games. I,
Yeah,
I mean, he could be a guy at the trade deadline who's available.
yeah. He's certainly talented enough to roll the dice on where the Celtics are. But
Yeah, they're at that point.
I there's somewhere I can't tell if they're trying to rebuild or trying to contend. I can't tell what they're doing here. And even their free agency moves, Mitchell Robinson a nice signing. They needed to upgrade the center position. There weren't a lot of options, but they're in the spot to bring in a guy that's kind of redundant to Cater in some ways. You know,
Yeah.
he's better offensive rebounder, he's a better defensive player, but Cater's a much better offensive player than him. And the skill set isn't so dramatically different that you're giving a team another look. But the reason you had to do it is because you screwed this up so royally, and there weren't any other options left.
Tatum's got to
And
develop like
so
a mid-range game now to make it work.
yeah, I think
He
there's a
can,
lot of skill with Keita.
he
I
can do
actually
that.
I could see him taking another huge jump this year and really I hope they extend him at a good number. I think he's worth hanging around. I really like him as a player. You saw it in Game 7, what he could have been for them if,
Yep,
he
he could stay on the
wasn't he
floor.
was if he couldn't stay on the floor. He outplayed Embiid in the second half of that game. So you see what you have with Keita. But they didn't have enough depth. They weren't talented enough there. And so they had to make this move. So that's fine. I give it like a B. That it's not an A plus signing or anything. It's like a B level. I guess you take it away from the Knicks, but you're so far away from them. What does that matter to you? And then the Mike Conley one, I don't get at all. I just don't get at all. Unless it's like they wanted a different type of veteran to be with these younger guys because they didn't think the experience was good last year. But they won 56 fucking games. Like, how bad could it have been? I
It's almost like the worst thing that could have happened last year was that like Tatum came back. Like in retrospect, like maybe I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. It is
I
it is it is interesting that like did the two of them not like each other? Is that a fair question to ask now? Because it's weird that like in most situations like this, you wouldn't if the other superstar was like so silent throughout, the speculation would be like there's a problem there. If they liked each other and the best player in the face of the franchise wanted him to be around, wouldn't he come out and say something?
I would have to think what happened. This is obviously purely speculative, but this is all we can do. Is that he went in this offseason. He had the best year of his career. He, without Tatum, got him to 56 wins. Probably without Tatum would have been high. If Tatum didn't come back, maybe would have been higher in the MVP consideration. Probably would have been All NBA first team. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I think, what my guess is he probably went in and said, "Hey, I've proven that I'm the best player on this team. I want to be treated as the best player on the team. I want the offense to run through me. I don't want to be the secondary option anymore. I've done that. I've bit my lip for 9 years. I was the second guy. I'm looking around the league at a lot of first guys that I'm better than. I know I'm better than. And, you know, I was the NBA Finals MVP, and now this is my turn. And clearly, the Celtics, through the evaluation of players over the years, they're not wrong here, by the way, have said Tatum is a better player. Tatum just can do more with his size and skill set than Brown can. And I just don't think that was going to work for them. And maybe there was a conversation with Tatum to see how he would react to it. And maybe he did not react well to that. Maybe Tatum was upset that Brown went in and said that. I don't know. But you can see how this could go maybe not great
Fucking
quickly.
egos, huh?
Yeah. And then
Just fucking egos.
if these two guys at this point now both see themselves as the lead guy, and you'd be asking Tatum to take a demotion. And you'd also look what Brown is asking for. I don't think you're as good in that scenario. With running the offense through him. And I thought we saw that in the playoffs because I thought we saw a lot of running through the offense through him. And when the offense was run through Tatum, They were much better. You look at their on-off numbers in the playoffs. Tatum's was the best on the team, or amongst the best on the team, um,
Mhm. Yeah,
and Brown's was the worst.
yeah, he had a tough series.
He had a tough series, and that's where the coverages change, and that's why having a 6'10" guy that can handle the ball and spray it around and do the things that Tatum can do, that's differently than what Brown can do, is better fit in those type of. It's just better. It's just a better thing to have. I
Yeah,
I So I wonder if that's where it went and it got toxic. And I wonder if Brown was trying to like lobby players on the team. Clearly was trying to send, um, messages through Twitch and things like that. I'm not gonna, as this thing played out and that he was in trade talks, I don't care about his Instagram posts or likes or things of that nature. Um, he was, he was clearly gone. He could react how he wants to react at that point. Um, but I do wonder. That's the only thing I can think of because this thing changed so fast. It went
yeah,
beyond your point, which I didn't agree with. It went beyond your point of like they need to move him and find what they can get because maybe some okay pieces or good pieces are going to be better than what you saw. Um, and they didn't get an okay pieces or good pieces. And
he
so
didn't get anything.
no, so outside of the pick, which might be that, but that doesn't help you.
The outlook is bleak. It's very bleak.
Mike, I said it to you. I said it to you after the Giannis that this is the first time my confidence has been shaken in the management and ownership, and it is
Yeah.
completely shaking. You could see this going forward. I felt like I started seeing this last offseason. I thought they had to make those hard decisions then. It would have been great to have been in the lottery this year, wouldn't it? With the guys that were there, it would have been
Oh, that
great
was
to
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been great to have those picks. Like maybe you weren't there, but maybe trading Brown or White or whatever could have got you what, obviously the Pelicans were dumb enough to trade what they had last year for Derek Queen. So,
Hmm.
what could have you done? I don't
I mean,
know.
they would have been better off like trading Jaylen Brown to Sacramento to get a guy who actually like plays. You know, like this is such a bad trade. This is like,
Yeah.
like they would have been better off getting like Zach LaVine in his contract than
Yeah, I don't know how many I don't
I don't
know.
know how many years he has left, but he actually like other than last
Yeah.
year doesn't he plays most games and he scores. Like
Yeah. I think he's
oh,
probably
this is such a bad spot that they're in.
if they want to get away from the way Brown played, that's probably not what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of moves around the league, Jim. Portland has a million point guards, which is interesting. So I feel like they got worse. Um,
I thought they
but
had an awful offseason. Like talk about the
yeah,
Celtics not going all in on Giannis, not meeting for Jaylen Brown, which clearly would have made you so much better, and
I
instead
know.
bringing in a lunatic. Yeah, okay.
When you have Dame, Drew Holiday, and Sharp already. So
Yep.
yeah, very interesting off season to say the least. Christoph Porzingis must have like the best agent in the NBA, $20 million a year. For a guy who doesn't play. It's fantastic. They brought back Al Horford too, which again, I guess Golden State's just trying to be like the oldest team who has guys that just never play.
Hmm.
And yeah, but there are certainly teams that got really good. I feel like Toronto, if they have a motivated Kawhi Leonard, which is a big question mark, but if they do, they got there. I would take them serious now.
They could be. Yeah. Who did they send out? It was Brandon Ingram, right? Did they keep Barrett in that move?
Yeah, they're stuck with Barrett.
I still like Barrett more than most. Um, yeah, I think it depends on Scotty Barnes. Is he finally going to be the guy that everyone thinks he is? And he hasn't been that. He's shown flashes. I thought he was going to be an all NBA guy, like a legitimate, like threatening. He hasn't been close. Leonard played well and played a lot of games last year, but it's kind of the same thing with Paul George when it comes to games played. Just has not
Yeah.
been available. So we'll see with that. Like if Kawhi's on the floor and he plays like Kawhi, yes. If he's not, then I don't know. Like again, to me, it's like if you're Toronto, wouldn't you rather Jaylen Brown?
You would think. You would think.
Yeah, like that's like it's just so confusing to me. Like when you call
They won a
Brandon,
championship with Kawhi, you know.
but he's 30 something years old and he doesn't play. Like then that's just like poor management using nostalgia to bring somebody in. Like what is up with Jaylen Brown that guys don't want him?
I think there's more to the Kawhi Leonard trade too when you listen to Pablo Toro talk about how the first time he went to Toronto, the things he was demanding
Maybe there's
that the
something to
Clippers ended
that.
up giving him.
But from a pure
Yeah.
basketball perspective, like it doesn't make sense. And if Jaylen Brown, he likes to call himself the best two-way player in the game. If he was, the market would be much higher for him than what it was. Obviously, the league does not view him that way. The league does
Or
not
maybe
view
they
him
do,
that
but
way.
they just, again, it's this collusion among owners. Like, he's the type of guy who forces us to get into that first or second apron, and we don't want that.
I would believe
We'd
that if
rather
the
invest in like a 24, 25-year-old.
yeah, I'd believe that if Portland didn't trade for John Morant and Toronto didn't trade for Kawhi Leonard because they have those contracts. So I would believe that if that was the case, but they took on those contracts for lesser players. You could say Kawhi's better, but he's not available. And it's close enough where you should want Jaylen Brown more. And they
Maybe these
both
teams
both
offered.
finals MVPs. Like yeah.
Well, the other thing we don't know, Jim, is these teams could have offered more, and the Celtics were asking for too much, and then they pivoted.
That could have happened. Well, that's the stuff I want to find out. Like that's the
Yeah,
stuff I want to know.
you
Um,
know,
yeah,
like John Morant could have been option number two for Portland, and Kawhi could have been option number two for Toronto.
yeah.
And the Celtics then could only negotiate with Philly. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, so I understand that for Toronto, Portland. Don't you wait? You
Yeah,
have the best offer no matter what. Like, don't you wait? Um, yeah,
yeah. Seeing what he went for, if I was
yeah,
Portland, it would have been like 3 first-round picks and fucking Scoot Henderson.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
As far as
I
the
wouldn't have.
East, the Knicks got they lost Mitchell Robinson. They're still very good. The Pacers are going to be better with Halliburton coming back. Um, and having Zubac there, obviously, it's going to create a good looking team. The Sixers are better with Jaylen Brown, regardless if Embiid plays or not. The Pistons, I don't know if they're better. I tend to think no. We'll see what happens with Jared Duran. I think that guy's being undervalued. I know he had a shitty playoffs. Um,
Yeah, and I feel like they got worse doing John Collins over Tobias Harris.
yeah, and Isaiah Stewart, like giving him away for nothing when you don't know what you're going to do with Duran. When Stewart was, in the running for Defensive Player of the Year at one point last year, was very, very odd. Again, why didn't the Celtics get in on that? Um, I'm not really sure. Not redundant with Kata would actually fit in kind of nicely with this team. Um,
Nice pickup for Memphis.
yeah, in Cleveland, who knows? Like Cleveland, it looks like they're running it back. Maybe they bring LeBron into the mix and running it back. Like that doesn't move the needle for
Yeah,
them.
where's he at? Where's he end up? I wonder if he goes to Philly.
Yeah, you could Golden State. You heard Philly, and then you heard what's his name from ESPN say the potentially Denver to play with Jokic.
That'd be interesting. If
Yeah,
I were San Antonio, I would have went after him and not Tobias Harris, but maybe LeBron doesn't want to go there.
yeah, maybe not, maybe
Could
not,
use that
and
kind of leadership.
yeah, and
Him
then
in Denver would be.
Miami's obviously better. I don't think they're a championship team, but they're obviously better. Um,
If they get
that's where you
LeBron, are
are.
they a championship contender?
I don't think so. I don't think he's that much of a needle mover like he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely a lot better. They could make a run in the East for sure. I should take that back. The East is so bad, and then once you get to the finals, you got to beat up Western Conference team for going through the wars over there. Then, yeah, I should. They get a shot. I would say that. Yeah,
Then that Timberwolves trade with Charlotte,
great
I
move
don't
by
understand.
Charlotte. Charlotte's had a
Yeah.
tremendous offseason. Got rid of that scumbag Bridges. The two guy reason I did not like Charlotte, and we get aggravated when you talked about them last year, is because of Bridges and Ball. I just can't warm up the team that had a guy like Bridges, despite like all the positives that they were doing and every correct thing you were bringing up. Now all of a sudden they're a likable team in my
Yeah, but
eyes.
are
You
they
know,
less talented though? I think they're less talented. I mean, they've replaced LaMelo Ball with Kobe White. LaMelo Ball is clearly more talented than him. And the Bridges trade, they didn't get back players as good as him. He's a 20-point scorer. They got back two guys who average about 10 points a game. Well,
it's a
no,
great
they got
question.
Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen had a
Yeah,
good year last year. So maybe, but Bridges, I think, is certainly more talented than Grayson Allen. So
yeah,
I don't know if they got worse though
and they
as
got
a
Naz
team.
Reid.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Minnesota, I don't think got better. You
no.
traded for a guy. I don't think he can make it through a playoff run
Well,
healthy.
Mark Stein saying Anthony Simon's going to the Mavericks, so that kind of
Oh yeah,
that takes that out of the equation.
great.
Um,
All right, Jim. Well, let's end this pod because it's kind of going nowhere.
yeah, well, under the pod, I don't know. We'll pay attention to what happens next. The proof's going to be in the pudding
Bill Chisholm
when
and
they
all
play
the
next
equity
year.
firm
Yeah,
guys are a bunch of cunts.
yeah. This is bad. This is bad.
Ruining sports is what these rich people are doing.
Yep,
Got to get the equity firms out of sports.
yep. All right,
All
guys.
right.
See you soon. They're going to call it a half foul as part of the Fan First Sports Network. All production is done in house, part of Get the Hell Off My Yard Productions.